I do think that often when we watch period shows about the Black community, it is about slavery or servitude or whatever.
Good morning, Upper 6. 7 o'clock. We're arriving in Montreal at 7:30. Train is on time, thank you.
When we wrote The Porter, we really tried to find the balance between showing the struggle without just feeling like we're just watching more and more content of Black people being victimized.
First thing, shoes are important. No scuffs, perfect polish. And when you walk, walk like a man with answers, because whether or not you have them, that's who you have to be.
You know, so obviously those things happen, but our focus was actually really to show how they overcame, to have more scenes ultimately of people being really active, of Black ambition.
If I wanted to get the Porters into a union, what's the first thing I should do?
Great fear of the white worker is that our elevation means their elimination.
That's what we feel like the show is about. We feel like the show is about Black ambition. And we tried very hard to show that, even while we necessarily had to show these other moments.
I have been called the most dangerous Negro in America.
In a lot of cases, in the civil rights movement, a lot of that money came from the Porters because it was consistent. So the March on Washington, that's A. Philip Randolph. You know, the Rosa Parks, a lot of that money came to pay for the lawyers, came from the Porters. So knowing that sort of history, when you put on that uniform and you know what it represents, for me as an actor, being able to do that every day, to work with the Amels and the Ronnies, such a blessing, man.
Wow.
I won't lie, when I first put it on, I had a moment.
I'm sure you did.
I had a moment, yeah.
When I hear somebody trying to sell me on a better life, I gotta ask myself, what is so bad about the life they got?
It also feels like, too, you've developed the writers, like Black women unapologetically not taking a backseat, because we never do.
Right.
We're never the backseat of our community.
Right.
Are you kidding? We're the heartbeat and the thread that pulls everything together.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's really quite incredible, I think, to be able to show women obviously being strong. You know, I think you're right, we see that a lot, but not just being strong in service of other people's dreams, but really trying to find themselves and their own dreams and their own paths.
We are supposed to create our own opportunities.
There are rules to be obeyed, Marlene, and I strongly suggest you start playing yours.
How do you hope or expect viewers both in Canada and the US to relate to Marlene and her journey and her character development?
People are going to be able to see this character, see what she was up against, what she was fighting for, and make connections to the women in their own family, to their elders, and really have a deeper understanding and appreciation for the women who walked so that we could run.
You think I'm out front just because I'm cream in your coffee?
Zeke, you make sure that my husband stays out of trouble tonight.
Don't I always?
I think the one thing that audiences will see in a show like The Porter and the way that it's designed, the way that it's written, is the diversity amongst Black people. You know, when you're talking about the way I feel Black people are portrayed in a lot of different productions or different films or TV, it's like it's very one note. You know, like we are the funny person or the comic relief or the serious person, all that. But The Porter shows all of that.
The force of our oppression is the truest measure of our power.
Oftentimes, I think in the Commonwealth culture, there's this real denial of anti-Blackness and systemic racism and this hush-hush kind of environment, this landscape. I'm sure you've experienced it where you're from and on both ends, even being in this country. It's a different environment, for sure.
Well, I don't think I think the Black experience is similar, but there's so much nuances of cultural manifestations within wherever you're at. So the African American experience is specific, and the Canadian or the Black British, but we're all effectively people that were either dropped off somewhere or went somewhere, and all operating under this this falsehood of white supremacy. And so within that framework, we all have to share the same story.
I know y'all might be scared of what might happen if we do this, but maybe it's time we start thinking about what happens if we don't.
And I think a lot of what we've seen last year from George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement, like narrative and exploring film and art is a lot of how we preserve and tell our stories.
Right.
So what was it like working on this set with a predominantly Black crew and cast as opposed to your other, I guess, career that you've been through already?
It felt very much like home. If that makes sense. Like, I have friends of all, like, different ethnicities and all that good stuff, but the people that I grew up with were primarily like Black folks, and it felt like home, like I was being dropped back into that, you know, in terms of like just culturally. There's a lot of people with like West Indian or African descent, so having those commonalities to just connect with people is always a great thing, and it makes the connection a little bit easier because of the common ground.
Do you think that this will be a shift in the film industry in Canada in the sense where they start to actually prioritize Black content?
Yeah.
You think so?
So as for a shift, there's a part of me that wants to say the fact that the Porter is here is the shift. It is the beginning of the shift, at least, right? I think this show will propel that shift to be a tidal wave, a Niagara Fall of other production companies wanting to go in this direction and tell these stories that have been there for a long time, you know?
Sure you don't want to work with me? You sure you don't want to join the movement?
I'm good.
This is a huge deal, not just for like Black Canadian content, but for Manitoba, Winnipeg talent. Because we know like the Ontario-centrism of Canada sometimes.
Yes.
Us little prairie folk get forgotten about. So it's really cool that you folks are here. And you know, I'm wondering, do you think this, like the Porter, it's going to really shift the culture of the film industry for Black creatives?
I truly believe it will. I think we already have. I think we've been here, and I do think that beyond that, you know, we wanted, I mean, the story is about our ancestors, our lineage, and it is, maybe it's set in 1921, but everything that we're talking about in this show applies to now. Everything.
I'm a Puerto Papsi, the most invisible man on the earth.